There are so many games released every single day that every single taste is now catered to, even those of a particular persuasion.
I know what kind of man you are.
But there are some games that really don't seem to care too much if you like them or not. I'm Jamie for Culture's Vultures, and these are video games that were not meant for everyone, but they're still really cool. You might be able to see this first one coming though. Perhaps the definition of that Joker meme, Deadly Premonition essentially succeeded in spite of its own idiosyncratic nature. Here, idiosyncratic means nonsense. Its weird art direction, nonsensical story, and questionable character choices all became part of the game's charm. Twin Peaks' influence was evident from the moment that Deadly Premonition was announced, but even the most devout Lynch lover would admit that Swery's bonkers mystery makes Lost Highway look a little like Scary Movie 2. Still, the game managed to retain a cult following of players who found something to love within this ambitious, sprawling mess of an open-world horror game that lets you roleplay as a Discord mod. It even spawned a sequel, though fans of the original like to imagine that game never happened. Set in a fictional Washington town, players control FBI agent York as he seeks to find the identity of the Raincoat Killer, who, as you might expect, has been doing some killing. Naughty. He stumbles upon conspiracies surrounding the history of the town, some supernatural shenanigans, and even the mysteries in his own past. It's all ridiculous, but in a fun, fight a kaiju redneck kind of way, while the town itself runs on a daily schedule that requires players to be in certain places at the right time to advance the plot, speak to certain locals, or complete side quests. Listen, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it here, the actual gameplay and combat does leave a lot to be desired, but if you're looking for something a little bit different, Deadly Premonition is absolutely worth a look. Shame that second game really rained on the parade though. A 2D platformer isn't what you'd immediately think of as the vessel for a survival game, so on that basis alone, Rainworld is a pretty unique gem. As a cute and adorable slug cat, you've been separated from your family by a terrifying flood, and you now find yourself amid the ruins of an ancient civilization. The good news is that these ruins can offer you some protection from the dangerous torrential downpours that threaten to drown everything in sight, but the bad news is that pretty much every other animal on the food chain had the same idea, and they're itching to turn you into their next meal. It's you versus an ecosystem determined to destroy you, and we're not going to lie, the ecosystem is probably going to win. Imagine Tokyo Jungle, but you don't even have Pomeranian powers to call upon. While the DLC expansion Downpour includes a host of additions that make the game much more accommodating to newcomers, such as actual tutorialized hints, a map system, and collectible tracker, the original version of Rainworld is a tough and punishing experience. Hey, even with the optional extras mentioned, Rainworld is no cakewalk, as players are required to use stealth and wits to get the best of their would-be predators, instead of just fighting anything that moves. That's a one-way trip to the game over screen, my friend. Of course, not everyone likes their games to be this difficult or even quite as obtuse as this, but for those who love punishment, Rainworld is one of the best games out there. I'll be honest though, I really didn't get along with it that much back in 2018, but that's because my gaming brain is dwarfed by most chimps. The Sims is meant to be considered one of the more intricate and engaging life simulation games on the market, but The Sims is playing in the sandpit compared to the Sahara Desert that is Dwarf Fortress, especially because EA would probably charge you per gram of sand. While The Sims lets you control the whims and overall fate of a family, Dwarf Fortress gives you control over an entire dwarven civilization, with each individual dwarf having their own wants, desires, fears, skills, and so on. For the most part, Dwarf Fortress is a simulation game in the most ridiculous sense possible, as you're at the helm of a melting pot filled with the most combustible elements imaginable. Sooner or later, something is going to explode in a huge way, and you're going to be there laughing the entire time. Words can't quite do justice to how deep and expansive the level of simulation that Dwarf Fortress offers, meaning that this game can be quite intimidating for newcomers. Not surprising really, since some version of Dwarf Fortress has been actively worked on for over 20 years at this point, with the game's developers even remarking that they're nowhere near even close to being done. Dwarf Fortress really rose to mainstream prominence when it finally came to Steam in 2023, showing everyone the glory of watching dwarven civilizations crumble from within. While the developers did go to big lengths to add more tutorials and improve the onboarding experience for new players, some people are simply going to be paralysed by the level of power offered in Dwarf Fortress, and also some people just can't climb over the 2-inch tall barrier of 2D graphics in 2025, and that's sad to me. Just remember, nobody tosses off a dwarf, or whatever, or maybe they do. It's probably a mod for all of you pathological sickos out there.
Come back.
It's somewhat silly that Dark Souls, or the Souls-like genre as a whole, has become the byword for games that are really entertaining to masochists, when pathologic is literally standing right there, daring you to even try and not get ganked within 5 minutes of playing. Like movies, games are supposed to be fun, but there are also films that are designed to be thoughtful, provocative, and just slightly depressing. Sometimes I like to stick the road on when I am feeling just a bit too happy for my own good. Keeps me modest. Pathologic and its pseudo-sequel Pathologic 2 fall into the latter category, producing the same emotional beatdown as binge-watching The Road Martyrs and anything with James Corden in it. What I'm saying is that Pathologic simply isn't for everyone whatsoever, and it's definitely not for people who use gaming to try and escape from the horrors of the real world. Though about 3/4 of the reviews on Steam read like, made me wish for the death of all things, 10 out of 10. So, what's it about? Well, Pathologic allows players to pick from 1 or 3 characters, each given the task of keeping a set amount of the town's population alive for 12 days as a plague ravages the area. Actually pulling that off requires plenty of coordination and luck, as food and medicine prices keep skyrocketing due to the ongoing disaster. You'll have to make decisions where you simply just can't even look at your moral compass. Despair is everywhere and everyone needs help, but there's only so much you can do. While the original Pathologic has more playable characters, Pathologic 2 is a remake sort of sequel of sorts kind of, expanding the story of one character while adding new elements to the presentation, town and overall world building, but it's still a fairly obtuse game that's designed to teach you through failure. Either way, both profit off your misery, so if you're in the market for some depression, all aboard the pain bus. Predating the wave of simulator games like Train Sim World, Euro Truck Simulator, and your dad getting in his car for a 20-year long trip to the shop simulator, Desert Bus would have been a huge hit with freaks like us if it launched today. Desert Bus was one of 6 minigames that would have been included on Penn and Teller's Smoke and Mirrors, the magician duo's first foray into the world of video games. The gimmick of Smoke and Mirrors was to essentially trick players, including the beat-em-up where Lou Reed would insta-kill players if they tried the impossible difficulty.
This is the impossible level, boys. Impossible doesn't mean very difficult. Very difficult is winning the Nobel Prize. Impossible is eating the sun.
I thought we all agreed to praise the sun. Now we're eating it. The developer, Absolute Entertainment, would go bust before the game could be fully released, but review copies had already been sent out, and 10 years after Smoke and Mirrors' supposed release, the full game was uploaded online, with Desert Bus becoming the breakaway hit. We probably don't have to explain it, but Desert Bus lets you drive the 8-hour journey from Tucson, Arizona to Las Vegas, with just a few bits of vegetation to see during the journey. Oh, and the bus constantly veers slightly to the right. It's basically the original Rage game, stuff like Bennett Foddy, and dezzy Bussy would spawn a good number of homages and spiritual successors. However, its legacy has truly been defined by the Desert Bus for Hope charity stream, with those streams raising over $10 million for children's charities over the years. Very nice, very cool. Ordinarily, LSD Dream Simulator would make the cut here, but I've spoken about it so much that it feels like I'm in a recurring dream. I need a bit of a come down, if you catch my meaning, so we're talking about a spiritual successor instead, in the form of the Indigo Parallel. It's Oh, it's actually weirder than LSD. I'm going to lie down. An immersive narrative experience more than an actual game, the Indigo Parallel dumps players into various dreamscapes, some of which seem kind of logical and understandable, like cities, factories, and underground mines, but then there's whatever the hell is going on with all these faces, just faces everywhere. Self-described as a cross between the surreal nature of LSD and the narrative experience of games like the Stanley Parable, the Indigo Parallel is a strange journey. A journey to where? I'm not entirely sure, to be honest, but it's going to stick in your memory no matter what. What makes the Indigo Parallel such an interesting and unique experience compared to LSD is that levels are defined and even altered by the choices you make within the game, including branching pathways and entirely hidden features. Of course, that means you're going to have to deal with lots more weird and creepy eyes looking at you in some kind of nightmare-fueled dimension, so maybe don't play this game if you're deep in your own LSD trip. I wouldn't even try this after an especially citric satsuma, to be honest. I think being eaten by a cannibal gang would be better than watching Jack Harrison every week, though. There have been many games over the years that have tried to sell the fantasy of surviving in a post-apocalyptic wasteland, that fantasy being grab the biggest gun and then win. But Kenshi is arguably much more realistic in its depiction of life after calamity. In short, it sucks, making Kenshi one of the most unpredictable and unforgiving games players can buy. It is brutally difficult, especially in the early going, demanding a lot in the way of time and patience from you. Expect to die quite a lot or lose your limbs frequently, but once you get rolling and you found a squad of homies to have your back, quite literally when you have no limbs, the game becomes a lot more fun as Kenshi's world and the way different features interact with each other start becoming more accessible to you. An open world game without a linear narrative to follow, you're instead dumped into a world filled with different zones and factions, and depending on either your actions or the game's own whims, factions will rise and fall, taking over cities or even forming their own towns in different areas. Skills are leveled up by performing them constantly, whether it's combat, theft, negotiation and more, and the game makes a point of letting the player know they're not some special, chosen hero sent from the heavens to rescue everyone. In just one stroke of bad luck, you could lose everything and end up toiling away as a minor, but at least you'll always have a friend to watch your back. While Hideo Kojima has managed to find his way into the mainstream as basically everyone's favourite uncle who brings a new girl to Christmas dinner every year, it's hard to really say his games are for everyone. The gameplay is almost always absolutely excellent, but if you don't have the stomach for 30-minute long cutscenes and overly long diatribes about how the cardboard in a cardboard box works and how it's the Patriots all along, MGS isn't going to be your kind of series. I think it's alright though. Yeah. It's alright. Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good. However, Kojima created perhaps one of the most divisive games in recent memory with Death Stranding. A walking simulator in the real sense of the term, DS basically puts you in the shoes of the most extreme delivery driver in gaming history. Paperboy has nothing on a digital Norman Reedus dodging weird shadow ghouls and playing Nightcrawlers and whatever else is happening in Death Stranding. Trying to explain the full plot and themes at play within Death Stranding would take way too much time, but the core premise sees you trying to link together a fractured version of the US through a series of supply chain and delivery routes, creating bridges and infrastructure to do so. You also need to dodge those ghouls, Troy Baker hamming it up so much that he may as well be in a Babe reboot, and a super spooky Mads Mikkelsen, though calling Mads spooky is like calling the sun warm. Kojima Productions did release a director's cut version, which added more features to appeal to the more casual gamer, like improved combat and a bit more in the way of action, but the idea of a AAA delivery game still isn't going to appeal to everyone everywhere. It's really like that Whiplash clip about matching the tempo, but instead of getting gaslit by Jonah Jameson, you're guilted into doing every possible gig for everyone, including Conan O'Brien, by your dying mother. Tough break. For those who it clicks with though, they consider Death Stranding to be a modern classic. My personal recommendation is to give it 10 hours at least. I actually, not gonna lie, kinda hated it when it first came out in 2019, but I played it recently and sank like 30 hours into it within a week. I just wanna tell you all. Please subscribe. If if you could describe Strange Scaffold's game library in one word, diverse wouldn't even begin to cover it. A human-centric indie team, Strange Scaffold have been earning a reputation for creating imaginative and frankly weird games that fill a niche you didn't even know needed filling. While some of their more recent efforts like the Max Payne homage El Paso Elsewhere, an absolute whipper of a game by the way, or the super fast FPS revenge thriller I Am Your Beast are shooting for a wider market, they've also developed games like Clickholding, where a strange man in a hotel room demands that you keep clicking. Or Space Warlord Organ Trading Simulator, a game that would win the Ronseal Award for doing what it says on the tin if it wasn't for another game, an airport for aliens currently run by dogs. An adventure game / walking simulator in what many would consider to be the pejorative sense of the word. You're basically exploring different airports across the galaxy, trying to maintain a relationship with your partner during her busy work life. Oh, and all the airports are populated with flat images of various dogs. No 3D models for the dogs, because that would make too much sense, as an airport for aliens currently being run by dogs is the sort of madcap fever dream that you're either going to find hilarious or cringy. There's no middle ground, honestly, but if you're in the mood for something that doesn't take itself too seriously, or you're curious to learn more about the enigma that is Chad Shakespeare, this is the irreverent game for you that will really make you feel like you're currently in an airport for aliens currently run by dogs.
Build up.
Have you ever played shoot-em-ups like Gradius, Raiden or Ikaruga and thought to yourself, I really think this genre needs more oiled-up, half-naked muscle dudes? The Chotoniki series is the manifestation of those thoughts, earning itself a reputation as being one of the most bromosexual games ever made. Publisher Nippon seemed to cotton on that it was absolutely not for everyone, as the series never saw an official release outside of Japan, aside from a Wii Virtual Console release of the first game, but still it garnered cult acclaim nonetheless for its wacky visuals, weird humour, and, well, the gameplay is fine. It's alright. Nothing special. It's alright. Those who played Langrissa may be familiar with Chotoniki as well though, as the characters make an appearance in a hidden level. Chotoniki started out on the SNES with hand-drawn anime-like visuals, but the series arguably hit its zenith of big dudes doing big dude things with the PS1 release, which used digitized sprites in a similar method to the likes of Mortal Kombat and others. Getting people to pose and stitch their photos together is easier than building new character models from scratch, apparently. The results look like Sega's Fantasy Zone stepped into the teleporter from the fly with a WWE show, maybe Great Balls of Fire, creating something that'll linger long in your memory no matter how much you try to forget it. This is about as not for everyone as it gets, but I'm still happy that it exists. But sicko's gotta eat. Sicko's gotta eat. Outro gang. We did it again. So, did you enjoy looking at some of these weird-ass games? If you have any more, I'd love to hear them, because I think you can do quite a few videos like this, or, you know, one big long one. So if you want to contribute to my long one, comment them down below, and they might be featured in a follow-up video. I've been Jimmy for Cultured Vultures. It's been good to have you, and thanks for watching. That'll do.